Okay, in the last video we talked about the unequal protection that the three values of liberty, equality and fraternity were able to receive within a democracy. I want to just very briefly explain how the autoimmune disease that's operating in democracies today functions. And it functions by setting the processes of democracy against the values of democracy. The main offender here, of course, are the populists. And what happens is that they need to be elected into power. Unless they're going to initiate an armed revolution, they need the population to vote for them. So in that sense, they proclaim they are the Democrats, people of the people, that they are respectful of the processes of democracy. And to a degree, that can be true. The actual functioning of the processes, the electoral register, the registering votes, the counting of the votes, the judicial processes, the oversight, the functioning of Parliament can work normally. And yet we can be losing democracy very quickly. The reason for that is that the populists require an intolerant electorate. So if we are to differentiate electocracy or majoration, simply getting a majority, against the actual values of democracy, we can see that what's going on is a deliberate attempt to create intolerant and fearful voters who will give up the values that we need to protect in order to elect people they say will protect us. And in this regard, they exploit and create new ways to make the population frightened. Now, the basis for a lot of this actually can be traced back to the West's response to 9/11 and how it has failed. Because really, so much of the populist agenda relates, the subtext of it is very much related to Muslims, Islam, the other, immigrants, refugees, and so on. And we see this very, very clearly in Hungary, in Poland, in Austria, and more in Germany, in the Netherlands, UK, and so on. And this is a real problem because there's some obvious empirical evidence they can point to, but most of their evidence is flawed, deeply suspicious, and actually doesn't match the facts. Immigrants, for example, refugees, immigrants, incomers, generally speaking, the crime rates from these people are far below the existing national averages in any particular country. So why is this fear being allowed to be generated? Well, it's being generated because fear is an asymmetric emotion in itself. Fear is one of those emotions where a little of it goes a long way, but it also is extremely contagious. But it's asymmetric in another way, in that once you're frightened of one fear, it's much easier then to introduce and plant other kinds of fear. And the one big fear that of course is being exploited by populists is the fear of the future. And that in turn is being fueled by the use of the emotions around the concept of nostalgia. There was a time, in other words, a golden era when everything was fine, and now there's a time when things are not. And the difference between these two times is, as you can see when you look around you, the other, basically. Now, democracy is at war with itself, and the process is at war with the values. And this is extremely significant because in any war, your objective is to protect your own, what's known as the strategic center of gravity, and for you to identify and attack your opponent's strategic center of gravity. The strategic center of gravity basically can be reduced to what defines you, your will to continue to protect what you have, and the character of who you are and your ability to continue. Now, for democracies, this is very much rooted in the everyday behavior of its citizens. If we lose the fraternity, if we lose the cooperation, if we lose the tolerance, if we lose the respect that enables the society to function, simply having a vote doesn't count for very much. And then again, the issue of who counts the votes in these situations is extremely questionable. There's a feature in one of the articles in the States of Mind, which is quoting Stalin, saying, once the people see that they've had a vote, their vote no longer matters. It all comes down to who's counting. But we have a situation that I just want to flag now, where the problem is that those who are attacking democracy claim to be its defenders, and they're not. And the key to this is understanding also how they have overemphasized the defense of one particular aspect of the triad of fraternity, liberty and equality, and that is that they emphasize freedom. But they don't actually want freedom for you and me. They want to weaponize freedom as a way to say, here is something you should be frightened about. The loss of freedom. And I'm going to leave it there for now and come back to this. But the important thing that I want to leave you with, this one thought, is democracies are not good at defending themselves from the movements in mass psychology that the populists are engaging in. But also, we're not good at defending our strategic centre of gravity unless individual citizens stand up and claim these values as our own. If we don't, we will lose them.